We'll keep this relatively short. Tying in with the RICS Code of Practice, the code states that managing agents should be accurate, clear and concise in the way that they communicate people, should dispatch communications in a manner to arrive promptly and comply with legislative requirements. So, for argument's sake, if we are issuing a service charge invoice to somebody who lives in Australia and we stick it in the post the day before it needs to be there, is that a reasonable way to behave? It's not. A managing agent should be available. That means within standard sort of 9 to 5:30 working hours, or there or thereabouts. If you ring your managing agent, somebody should answer the phone. If you write to them, they should respond to you. If you email them, they should respond to you. And should also offer a solution to events, emergencies, incidents that occur outside working hours. Now, that doesn't mean a managing agent has to be open 24 hours a day, but it means they have to at least offer a provision to be in place so that emergencies can be dealt with outside normal working hours. So, in short, the code really says that managing agents should communicate in a pretty reasonable way, and if you want to phone us up or email us or talk to us, then we should be available to do that, and we should respond to you in a reasonable time frame. Part of the way that we operate is to have an entirely separate, what we call a customer service charter, which specifies the time frames that we will respond to various forms of correspondence, and I would suggest that's a good thing for a lot of managing agents to employ, to say, right, if you send us an email, we will respond to you within 2 days, or whatever time frame is appropriate to that agent. And I guess in terms of communication then, what are the things that you should do as residents or as a resident management company? You can see what we've put there, but be accurate, clear and concise. I think, if you're asking us as a managing agent to do something for you, then we actually need a relatively clear instruction as to what that is. And we have all sorts of scenarios where there might be a management company with 12 directors and they all want different things, and one phones us up to say, can you attend to something? And someone else phones us up to say, actually, can you not do that? And from a managing agent's perspective, that's actually a really difficult situation, because that management company, who is our employer, is telling us to do completely conflicting things. So I think in terms of communication, what a managing agent would ask of you is really to make clear decisions and to communicate them in a sort of unanimous way and a clear way. We are always very happy to offer any guidance to residents in terms of specific situations. If there are decisions which are difficult to make, we can offer different solutions to come to a decision-making process, but ultimately we need to understand what you want to be able to deliver it. So.
Okay. The reason we have this one is just to make it clear that a lot of the problems we face, even when you've appointed the best case scenario managing agent, is still all about communications. And it's really important to know how to behave. I've dealt with a number of estates where people were not polite and reasonable as a tenant. And it's dreadful, because then you get into positions where the managing agent or the freeholder will not talk to the residents because of the abuse they've received. The abuse is understandable because people feel so passionately about not getting the service they want or not getting answers to the questions they're asking. But it really doesn't help. And then the democratic and decisive choice, I think, are important. We have a final slide, I think, that's worth just
Is there? Okay.
looking at. That's last one, yeah. This is really just to say that this is a standard which Engage has agreed over many years, from a lot of experience, that this should be the mantra, that the gold standard that everybody aspires to, and actually works actively to achieve in your development. That everything you do is democratic, so that you can be removed, whoever you are, and whatever you do. If people don't like what you do, they have a right to get rid of you. No matter how much effort you've put in, and no matter if you were the founding father or mother of the development to improve things, people still have a right to get rid. That's a democratic choice. We have a development in the city, the waterfront, where that has been removed from all the residents, and it's dreadful, it's shocking. And I've been involved in a mediation process, and they still refused. We managed to persuade them to hold an AGM, and this is a resident management company, residents in charge, not like in other areas. And what they did was they held an AGM in August on a Friday, and had a clause in the statutes that said for business to be conducted, there had to be a quorum of 75% of owners. Impossible. So they can carry on. They ticked a box by calling the meeting, but then declared it couldn't actually conduct any business, and they all walked out. Utterly shocking. And can you imagine what it's like to live in that kind of a place? Well, of course, most people are leaving, and it's a sink estate of really nice houses and apartments that look shocking. And I don't know what's going on, but I can't understand why any resident director of a company would want to see that kind of experience continued. So democratic is absolutely critical. Then the next two fall in. Transparent. Even in Engage, for example, we publish the minutes of all our board meetings. They're public documents that we make available on our website. Now, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't happen at all our developments. It can be difficult, and you need to be careful what goes into the minutes, but there should be a level of transparency so that people can see what decisions are being made, and who's making those decisions, and why the decisions are being taken. And finally, to be held accountable means that you need to go before your residents on a regular basis and explain what you've done and why you did it, and give them the chance to say congratulations and well done, or we think it's time we had another group of people running this show. So those three things are very important to Engage. Let's just have a few minutes very briefly, because we're coming close to our time, to see if there's any round-up questions or concerns that stemming from today that you would like to ask. Thomas.
Because you said before that a management company is restricted to what it says in the lease to actually do to the development. Now, I've seen in a few situations that the original developer has left the development to a degree underdeveloped, handed it over, abandoned it, and now the lease basically just allows to maintain or preserve the status quo rather than carry on actually taking it from there and developing it further. So what I'm asking is it possible for a resident management company to make a management agreement with you to go further than what the lease actually says? And because you said it would be hard to recover service charges for items that go above what the lease is saying.
Yeah, the lease, the way that, generally speaking, leases work is that they have to positively covenant something for us to be able to deliver it. So typical things which are omitted from leases are things like paying accountants' fees if you need to have your service charge accounts certified. And actually, there's then conflicting things because legislation state or the RICS code states that service charge accounts in that scenario perhaps should be certified if it's the right size of development, but the lease doesn't make a provision for us to recover the money to actually get that done. And in those scenarios, really, the resolve is to go to the tribunal, because actually the lease is fundamentally dysfunctional in that sort of situation. In terms of taking it further, I mean, the only possible way when a company is involved to deal with things other than those specified within the lease is actually to recover money as shareholders of a company, and the company employ certain services rather than them going through the service charge, which is not a simple process to go through. So essentially, if you've got a management company with 10 members, and instead of that company, not really or not having any income or expenditure, actually you can make it have income and expenditure and then do things with it as a company. But in terms of the lease and the service charge must correlate to what's in the lease.
Can I just clarify that? Do you mean improving
For example,
the building structure? Or,
for example, if you said, this is how the developer left it, but we would like to have, let's say, for example, some landscaping to make it look nice, and that would ultimately improve the living standards or the value of the investment. But that landscaping hasn't been written into the lease. Could we then say, we instruct you as a management company, because we instruct you as the RFC?
I mean, you can,
Kind of,
we've done that where I live, so maybe I can try. You can tell me where we've gone wrong. I think we agreed. I think probably nearly all of us agree that the buildings we inherited when we took over are not adequate to what we expect or aspire to within the development. So it's not just a question of maintaining, it's a question also of enhancing and improving what we were given. But the lease doesn't actually allow you to do that. But as long as it's something which you've consulted with and which everyone is agreed is an improvement, and it's going to increase the value of people's investment in the development, there won't be any problem. Now, for example, at City Quay, we're going to a Section 20 at the moment, because we're not happy with the quality of the doors that we were given and all the furniture that goes onto the entrance doors. And so we've all agreed what we want. We've put 4 new entrances around the estate for people to look at. We took the worst 4 entrances and replaced them. Each one's different in design. So we've had to have, but we've kept the same design and put it into each applicable new entrance. And we've let people come and look at it. We're now going into Section 20, but that actually is an improvement because it will add greater safety and security to the estate. We've done the same with the gates. We've got 2 large vehicle gates which were not motored appropriately in the original specification. And for the first 5, 6, 7 years under Trinity, they were virtually open day and night for months on end. And then they'd get repaired and they'd go a day or 2 later. So we went in, we said, enough of this, we're going to improve the gates. So we got a bigger engine that cost money. No one's batted an eyelid. The gates are closed and have been closed constantly since the resident management company took over.
Now you used a key phrase there saying when everyone agrees. We have one notorious leaseholder who kind of is a solicitor and plays the game and tries to avoid paying service charge wherever he can. And so he would go out of his way to. I'm not generalizing here, but this particular person is really an inhibitor to the pleasure of life.
I think actually it's quite interesting the ones that the examples that Jerry gave, because their lease probably says that they're required to maintain the doors and the structure, the boundary fences and the gates. And it's when you get into the argument about maintaining, because it's gone beyond that now, we're improving. Now, most commercial leases of parts of a shopping centre or something like that, most commercial tenants would refuse to pay for what they regard as capital expenditure improving the landlord's asset, because they're only there for 5 years or 10 years. So they're going to say to their landlord, we're not paying for what we regard as improvements. So their lease might say that the cost of the item would be repaired to the point where it was beyond economic repair. Most long residential leases won't say that. I would be extremely surprised to see in a flat lease. So it will just say to repair and maintain the gates. So there's an enormous grey area there for arguing, in Jerry's case, that that is a proper head of the expense. In the case of them not saying anything about landscaping or having, let's say, a display of plants in the reception area or having security on the desk downstairs, let's say none of that is provided for. If you have a resident who said, and you'll 9 out of 10 say, we would like to have a display of plants in the reception area, and that will cost us, £100 a year or £1,900 a year or so, and we won't be in a consultation procedure. One resident, you send them the bill and they go through their service charge and say, that's not a head of expenditure that I'm required to pay. They're not going to pay.
But actually, they have to pay everything else.
Yes,
Yes.
they
So
have to pay everything else.
You might have to just figure into your plan that one person will refuse 1/10, if it's 10 people, 1/10 of the cost of what you're doing, which would need to be covered by everybody else.
And I think in practical day-to-day terms,
They may not withhold
the things which are sensible improvements, things which are for the benefit of everyone, usually there isn't an issue with. But in that scenario where it's a residence management company and you are potentially asking a managing agent to do something which isn't covered by the lease, what you're really doing is saying, actually, as a director of that management company, I'm going to take responsibility for this and instruct it to be done. And you're almost, whereas most management agreements that employ a managing agent are there to discharge all responsibilities and obligations to the managing agent, so you don't have to worry about it as a director. If you're sort of directly contravening the lease, then in fact what you're really saying is, well, I'm going to take the chance with that, and it's going to be my responsibility as the director of the management company. So, but I think in the scenario you've given, where it's a development where there is some landscaping and we're talking about enhancing that, I wouldn't particularly foresee there being a problem in doing that, as long as it's done in a sensible way.
To that discussion.